and welcome to Fully Charged. This week I'm going to be doing a review of the car I'm driving every day at the moment. This car. This is the Mitsubishi iMiev, one of the first really sort of proper family-sized electric cars to be released for sale in the UK. As part of a one-year field trial, a consortium called Carpool released a handful of the cars in the West Midlands to ordinary families. And me. It's just a normal car. It's got 4 doors, 4 seats, room in the boot, goes up to 85 miles an hour, and realistically it'll do 75 miles on a charge, not 100 as they say in this publicity. But everything else they say seems to be pretty accurate. It's quite an odd experience. This is my first time in an iMiev on my own. This is my car for the next year. I'm in the middle of Birmingham, just outside the Birmingham Repertory Theatre. Lovely. We're surrounded by cameramen, newsmen, people talking and things, and we've got to have someone walking in front of us while we drive through the pedestrian area, which is great fun. We've just driven over a pedestrian crossing, which is quite bizarre. What I'm trying to do at the moment is keep my needle in the green section, because I've got quite a long journey, and you know, I've got that classic thing that every time I ever speak publicly or anywhere about electric vehicles, I'm always asked the same question. What happens if you run out on a motorway? You don't do it. That's what happens, because if you do it, you're an idiot. So you don't drive onto the motorway when you don't think you've got enough juice left in your batteries to get you home. Now, obviously, this car was built for use in dense urban situations, but I live in the middle of the sticks. However, I've found it incredibly useful. We really do use it every day. But how do I charge it? Well, it's really complicated. You need a master's degree in physics and electronics to even begin to charge an electric car. First off, electricity supplier E.ON came to my house and they installed this little box on the wall. To charge it, I have to pull the lever, open the hatch, flip the lid, plug it in, and walk away. Is that it then? Okay. Then, if I've driven further and I can't get home on one charge, I park in a public car park like this one in Coventry, get my charge lead from the boot or trunk, plug it in, and it charges while I do a bit of shopping or go to a meeting. This charger is just the same power as you'd have at home in the UK, 240 volts at 13 amps. And pretty soon, if I'm on a motorway and I don't have that much time, I'll use one of these, a fast charger. This one is at Mitsubishi's UK headquarters, same principle. You plug in a bit of a hefty cable, press start, and it gives you a fast charge at about 345 volts at 70 amps, which takes around 30 minutes. 30 minutes, of course, if your battery is completely flat. But generally, it's not going to be completely flat. Mine wasn't, so it actually took about 15 minutes to get it up to 80%, which gives you a safe range of about 60 miles. The Mitsubishi iMiev. It's not the best name in the world, it's not necessarily the best looking car in the world. I wouldn't judge its chances of winning sexiest car of 2010 as being very high, but it's extremely easy to drive. It works, it goes along. I'm doing 60 miles an hour now, very easily, without any trouble. Is this an exciting car to drive? I don't really think you can call this an exciting car to drive. It's not exciting or sexy in any of those terms. Well, I've driven this car 5,000 miles now. When you consider that it costs about 1.1 pence a mile to drive, that's about, let's be generous, about 52 quid. 5,000 miles in my Prius, that costs about 7 pence a mile to drive, and that works out at about £350. 5,000 miles in a super economy 1.5 litre diesel, that costs about 8.5 pence a mile to drive, which works out at about £425. And of course, my all-time favourite comparison, the Porsche Cayenne, which costs 48 pence a mile to drive, and so if you drive 5,000 miles in that, it will cost you £2,400. So how much does it actually cost to buy one of these cars? Because they are for sale today. Well, the last time I checked, there's no point denying it, they are ridiculously expensive. Mitsubishi announced a price of £5,000 for this car. Now, if the government subsidy continues, who knows if it will, which is £5,000, it would cost you £33,000. Well, that is self-defeatingly expensive. The only way cars like this are really going to catch on is if they are much, much cheaper. So why are they so expensive? I think they're expensive for two reasons. One of them is really obvious. Representatives at Mitsubishi have told me that the battery makes up 2/3 of the cost of this car. So it is quite possible for Mitsubishi to sell the rest of this car without the batteries for under £10,000. Because now they will buy these batteries in. They're not made yet by Mitsubishi. They're made by companies that manufacture batteries for things like camcorders, for laptops, for electric toothbrushes, for electric drills. They're not made for cars yet. But motor manufacturers are now very busy, not only developing new types of battery technology, but they're also manufacturing them themselves, and they're manufacturing them in bulk. So I think it's perfectly understandable that this car is really expensive, and I doubt that they're going to sell very many of them. Whereas it's going to be very obvious that very, very soon, I'm talking within months rather than years, the battery technology is going to leap forward. Once the battery plants are online and they're really producing serious, chunky amounts of batteries, they will be much, much cheaper. The other reason, which I think is very, very important, the other reason is cars are made by petrol heads. If you work in the automotive industry, you are by definition someone who's keen and interested in that world. You're interested in engines and speed and power and performance and torque. That's what gets their hearts beating. That's what really excites them. Within these big companies, there are small cabals. There's small groups of engineers and scientists and salespeople who are really, really into it, but they're outnumbered by a huge margin. So therefore, the decision-making process that goes on within big corporations like Mitsubishi, like Honda, like Toyota, like Nissan is very, very conflicted. And one way you can kill a product if you're at the top of a company and you don't want to make electric cars is you make them stupidly expensive. The reason they're making them is because they're under enormous pressure from governments to do it, which of course they hugely resent, because corporations are very powerful bodies and spend billions of pounds lobbying governments around the world. The Californian government imposed restrictions on motor manufacturers. If you don't sell cars with zero emissions, you can't sell any cars at all. That was the ruling. Hence the EV1, hence the billions of pounds the motoring manufacturers spent on lobbying the Californian government to repeal that law, and they did, and they immediately took all the cars back and they crushed them. And if you don't know about that story, there is a movie that's worth watching called Who Killed the Electric Car? It explains it in enormous detail. So those are my two reasons as to why these cars are still ludicrously expensive. And the one further thing I want to say before I finish is they will get cheaper. So overall, apart from the self-defeating cost that Mitsubishi recently announced, this is a fantastic little car. We really do use it every day. I mean, it's got zero tailpipe emissions. It's got near zero maintenance costs. In fact, the biggest shock of all was having to buy a bottle of screen wash. It cost £1.25. I mean, that's 125 miles worth of electricity. Nightmare.